Think again. So let's talk about presidents. You see them on the news all the time, right? They're shaking hands, signing papers, giving speeches that either make you want to salute a flag or take a nap. It's easy to think of them as these powerful, almost mythical figures who just appeared one day in a suit and tie, ready to run a country. Maybe they're having a tense meeting with another world leader or trying to explain why the price of avocados has suddenly gone through the roof. It's all very official, very serious, and very, very rehearsed. They're the main characters in the global drama we call current events. But here's the thing we often forget. These people weren't born in the presidential palace. Shocking, I know. They were kids once. Awkward teenage years, terrible haircuts, jobs they probably hated. They had dreams that had nothing to do with nuclear codes or national debt. One might have been trying to talk to a girl at a school dance, another was probably just trying to pass a math test. They are products of their own stories, their own struggles, and their own weird, winding paths that somehow led them to the most powerful jobs in their countries, and that's where the real story is. Understanding where these leaders came from is more than just a fun trivia night fact. It's a roadmap to understanding why they make the decisions they do. Their childhood, their first career, the challenges they faced. It's like finding out your super strict math teacher used to be a roadie for a rock band. Suddenly everything makes a little more sense. It's the backstory that gives the main story its flavor, its depth, and its humanity. It reminds us that behind the teleprompters and the security details, there's a person who put their pants on one leg at a time this morning. Probably. So, we're going to peel back the layers on a few of these global headliners. The guy running America, the man in charge of France, the leader who became an international symbol of defiance in Ukraine. We are going to dive into their origin stories. Forget the polished press releases and the carefully crafted public images for a minute. Let's get into the nitty-gritty, the surprising, and the sometimes downright unbelievable tales of how these individuals went from regular people to presidents. Because their journeys are not just about politics, they're about resilience, ambition, and a little bit of luck. Alright, let's start with the big one. The President of the United States, Joe Biden. You see him now, the elder statesman, the guy who loves aviator sunglasses and ice cream more than anyone should. He's been in Washington, D.C. for so long, some people joke that he came with the building. It's easy to see him as just this permanent fixture of American politics, a face that's been on our screens for literally decades. He's the quintessential politician, the guy who can deliver a soaring speech about hope and unity, and then immediately get lost in a story about his old Corvette. It's a whole brand. But Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. wasn't always this powerful figure. His story is less of a straight line to the top, and more of a winding, often bumpy road. It's a classic American tale, really. It's got family tragedy, political setbacks, and a stubborn refusal to quit that's either inspiring or insane, depending on your point of view. This isn't a story of a guy who was born with a silver spoon in his mouth and a clear path to the presidency. It's a story about a kid from a working-class family who had to fight for every inch he gained, both personally and professionally. His journey is a testament to the idea that persistence can, eventually, pay off. Think about it. This is a man who ran for president 3 times over a span of more than 30 years. Most people would have given up after the first or second try. They would have said, okay, I get the hint, universe, and gone on to a quiet life of writing memoirs and giving expensive speeches. But not Joe. He just kept coming back, like a political boomerang. His career has been a roller coaster of soaring highs and crushing lows, a real-life soap opera played out on the national stage. And that's what makes his backstory so compelling. It's not just about the policies or the politics, it's about the person. It's about a man shaped by profound loss, a man who had to overcome a debilitating stutter as a child, and a man who spent nearly half a century in the corridors of power before finally reaching the very top. So, to really understand the president in the Oval Office today, we have to go all the way back to the beginning, to a small house in Scranton, Pennsylvania, where a young boy was just trying to find his voice. Let's rewind the clock. Joe Biden was born in Scranton, Pennsylvania in 1942. This wasn't a place of glitz and glamour, it was a tough, working-class coal mining town. His dad was a used car salesman, a man who'd seen financial ups and downs. He taught his kids the value of getting back up after you've been knocked down. This upbringing in Scranton instilled in Biden a blue-collar identity that he carries with him to this day. It's why you always hear him talking about the dignity of work and connecting with everyday working families. That's not just a political slogan for him, it's the world he grew up in. But young Joe had a major hurdle to overcome, a severe stutter. It caused him immense anxiety and made him a target for bullies. Can you imagine? The guy who now gives speeches to the world used to be terrified to speak in class. He worked relentlessly to overcome it, spending hours in front of a mirror reciting poetry to train his mouth and his mind. This struggle didn't just teach him how to speak, it taught him empathy and resilience. If Joe Biden's story is a slow and steady marathon, Macron's is a full-on sprint. This guy came out of nowhere. One minute, nobody in the general public really knew who he was, and the next, he's the president of France. It was like France was watching a political drama. And the writers suddenly introduced a brand new character in the final season and made him the star. He's young, he's sharp, he carries himself with an air of intellectual confidence. That can be seen as brilliant, or let's be honest, a little bit arrogant. Macron represents a complete break from traditional French politics. For decades, France had been governed by the same two major parties. They were the Coke and Pepsi of French politics. Then Macron showed up and basically said, what if we tried sparkling water? He created his own political movement from scratch, La République en Marche. He positioned himself as a radical centrist. He argued the old left-right divide was obsolete. He said France needed a more pragmatic approach. His rise was meteoric and unprecedented in modern French history. He wasn't a career politician climbing the party ladder. He was an outsider, a former investment banker, a civil servant. He had only briefly served as Minister of Economy. He bypassed the entire established political system. He used his youth and message of renewal to capture the imagination of a country tired of the old guard. He was selling something new, something different, and France in 2017 was ready to buy it. This makes him a fascinating figure to look at. How did he do it? How did this political prodigy, this Jupiter, manage to conquer the French political establishment so quickly and decisively? His story isn't just about ambition. It's about timing, branding, and a deep understanding of the shifting political landscape. It's the story of a man who saw a gap in the market and created a product perfectly tailored to the moment. To understand the leader of France today, you have to understand the brilliant, audacious, and slightly disruptive path he took to get there. Emmanuel Macron grew up in a quiet city in northern France called Amiens. He wasn't from a family of politicians. His parents were both doctors. From a young age, he was a super smart student, a whiz kid, great at reading and thinking deeply. He was probably reading grown-up books while other kids were playing with trading cards. He was also a talented piano player. Everyone around him could see how smart he was. He eventually left Amiens and went to Paris to go to the best schools in the country. One of them was called the École Nationale d'Administration, or ENA. ENA is basically where future French presidents and prime ministers are made. His early career showed how good he was at moving up in the French system. After finishing ENA, he became a high-level government worker. Then he took a different path and went into the world of big money, becoming a very rich investment banker at a company called Rothschild & Company. This part of his background is really important. It helped him understand both how the government works and how businesses work. But it also made some people on the left side of politics criticize him. They later called him the president of the rich, and now, for the most unlikely president of them all, Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine. If you had told someone in 2018 that a comedian who played a fictional president on a TV show would become a real-life president and then a global symbol of wartime courage, they would have laughed you out of the room. It sounds like the plot of a movie he himself would have produced. But that is exactly what happened. Zelensky's story is the most surreal and, in many ways, the most inspiring political journey of our time. It's a complete script flip on what we think a leader should be. Before 2019, Zelensky was one of Ukraine's most famous entertainers. He was a comedian, an actor, and the creative force behind a production company that made TV shows and movies. His most famous project was a hugely popular TV series called Servant of the People. In the show, he played Vasyl Holoborodko, a humble high school history teacher whose anti-corruption rant in class is secretly filmed by a student, goes viral and leads to him being unexpectedly elected president of Ukraine. Life, as they say, sometimes imitates art in the strangest possible ways. The line between fiction and reality began to blur in a spectacular way. Frustrated with Ukraine's endemic corruption and the country's political class, Zelensky decided to actually run for president. He named his new political party Servant of the People after his TV show. His campaign was like nothing seen before. He barely did any traditional rallies or interviews. Instead, he campaigned almost entirely online, using social media and his TV fame to connect directly with voters. He was a virtual candidate, a protest vote in human form against the entire political establishment. And it worked. It worked beyond anyone's wildest dreams. In 2019, Volodymyr Zelensky, the actor, won the presidency in a landslide, capturing over 73% of the vote. And then, in February 2022, Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and the comedian was forced to become a commander-in-chief. When the invasion began, many expected Zelensky to flee. The United States reportedly offered to evacuate him from Kiev. His response became legendary. He said, "I need ammunition, not a ride." In that single moment, the comedian vanished, and a wartime leader was born. He chose to stay in the capital, posting defiant videos from the streets of Kyiv with his team, reassuring his people and the world that he was not backing down. Dressed in his now iconic olive-green t-shirt, he became the face of Ukrainian resistance, a global symbol of defiance against overwhelming force. Zelensky's background in communication became his greatest weapon. He used his skills as a performer to rally his nation and the world. When you look closely at Biden, Macron, and Zelensky, there are some common threads. Each of them, in their own way, tapped into a deep public desire for something different. Their stories show us that there's no single formula for leadership, and it suggests that the potential for leadership might be found in the most unexpected places, maybe even in a history teacher's classroom.